You know that feeling when you're about to say something and then you don't? Not because you changed your mind, but because something in you hesitates. It's subtle, almost automatic. You adjust your words slightly, tone it down, make it easier to accept, less different. And most of the time, no one even realizes it happened, not even you. There's a certain kind of person who does this more often than others. Someone who senses the room quickly, who notices what's expected, what's acceptable, what fits. And over time, they get very good at adjusting. From the outside, it can look like adaptability, like being easygoing, like knowing how to blend in. But there's another side to it that doesn't get talked about as much. Because when you're constantly adjusting to match what's around you, people don't always see the original version underneath. And slowly, that version becomes harder to access.
This isn't usually framed as a problem. In fact, it's often rewarded. Fitting in makes things smoother, less friction, less risk. You avoid standing out in ways that might attract criticism or misunderstanding. So the behavior stays. And over time, it becomes a pattern. What's really happening here isn't just about personality or preference. It's about something larger. The quiet ways society shapes people toward being average, and how easily that process can go unnoticed. There's more going on here than people realize. At a psychological level, the human brain is wired for belonging. Long before modern life, survival depended on being part of a group. Being accepted meant safety. Being excluded meant risk. That wiring hasn't changed. Even now, the brain treats social rejection as something serious. Studies have shown that the same regions activated by physical pain also respond to social exclusion. So when there's even a small chance of being judged, misunderstood, or left out, the brain takes it into account. It adjusts behavior to reduce that risk. Not dramatically, just enough. A word softened here, an opinion held back there, a preference reshaped slightly to match what's already accepted. And because these adjustments are small, they don't feel like a loss. They feel like normal social behavior. Over time, though, they accumulate. Behavioral science calls this a kind of conformity drift. Not a conscious decision to change who you are, but a gradual alignment with what's common, familiar, and widely accepted. The environment reinforces it constantly, through feedback, through social cues, through what gets approval and what gets ignored. And the brain learns quickly what works, what doesn't. So it starts optimizing for acceptance.
This pattern often begins early. In childhood, being different can draw attention, sometimes curiosity, sometimes rejection, sometimes subtle signals that certain parts of you are too much or not quite right. It doesn't take many of those moments for the brain to start adapting, not by removing those parts entirely, but by learning when to hide them, when to be quieter, when to agree, when to stay within what feels safe. As those patterns repeat, they become automatic, less like a choice, more like a default setting. And as life becomes more connected through social media, constant comparison, exposure to thousands of opinions, the pressure to align increases. You're not just adjusting to a small group anymore. You're adjusting to an entire environment. An environment that subtly rewards similarity, predictability, familiarity, and discourages anything that feels too far outside of that. But it's important to see this clearly. This isn't about something being wrong with you, and it's not about society being entirely negative either. Every group, every culture has some level of shared behavior, some level of alignment that makes interaction possible. Without it, connection would be chaotic. So this tendency to adapt, to blend in, to smooth out differences, it isn't better or worse than standing out. It's just one way the human system maintains balance. Different people lean in different directions. Some feel more comfortable expressing themselves openly, even if it creates friction. Others feel more stable when they align with their environment.
Neither is more correct, but there's a quiet trade-off in this process that often goes unnoticed. The more precisely you learn to fit into what's expected, the less often you experience what it feels like to move outside of it. Not in a dramatic way, just in small, everyday moments.
And those are not small things. They have value. They make relationships easier in many ways. They reduce unnecessary conflict. They allow you to move through different spaces without resistance. But they also come with that quiet cost. The part of you that isn't shaped by expectation doesn't disappear. It just waits. In smaller moments, in choices that feel slightly more honest, in thoughts you don't immediately edit. And the more you notice those moments, the easier it becomes to recognize that they were always there. Nothing about this makes you broken. It makes you human. It reflects how deeply the need for belonging is built into you, and how naturally your mind has adapted to protect that. Understanding this doesn't require you to change anything all at once. It just changes how you see what's already happening. And sometimes, seeing it clearly is enough to create a different kind of awareness. The kind that lets you notice when you're adjusting and when you're not. And if this feels familiar, there are probably other ways your environment has shaped you in quiet, almost invisible ways. Patterns that feel natural, but weren't always yours. And once you start noticing one of them, it becomes easier to see the rest.